Welcome back into the Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes wrongly assume that the number one ranked team in the country at home as a 19.5 point favorite will beat a lowly intra-conference foe in the midst of a big-time NFL Sunday divisional championship round. I'm, of course, Matt Norlander. Gary Parrish will join me very shortly here on the podcast. Here's what happened. I'm going to talk Temple beating Houston. Humongous upset. I'll talk about that in just 1 second. But we wrapped up the pod. We went early. There was not a lot of notable stuff happening in college basketball into the late afternoon on Sunday. We thought Houston would take care of business. Huge Bengals-Bills game on CBS, right? Then you've got the NFC side with the Cowboys and Niners. And we know there are so many of you that love college basketball, but also watch the NFL game. So we didn't want to divide your attention to the healthy audience that does join us live on YouTube. So we got that done. Lo and behold, the universe, the basketball gods say, no, you don't. Don't even think about it. This is actually a funny running trope now. It's not just Parrish. I'm owning this as well. We are developing an unfortunate habit of making predictions about things or assumptions about things, and then they come back and just hit us right in the face. And thinking that Houston was going to take care of business as expected against Temple was one of those things. I'm pretty sure, by the way, Nada, that somewhere on this episode, which again, the rest of this episode after I'm done talking and GP and I join as normal, I'm pretty sure at some point in the episode, I say something along the lines of, and Houston won. Well, that didn't happen. Do not take that part out of the podcast. I will own it. I'm owning it there. But credit to Temple for getting its biggest win in ages. It's the first time since 2000 that the Owls beat a top-ranked team. In fact, it's just their third win in program history against a number one ranked team. And there's also this. I think this is a first. Obviously, I don't have this as 100%, but I can't imagine it's ever happened before. Temple, unranked team, on the road, playing at the number one team in the country. It does not hit a field goal for the final, I think it's officially 7 minutes and 18 seconds, but let's just call it 7:15 or 7 minutes. I don't think there's ever been an unranked team on the road upset a number one team, and in doing so, did not make a basket from the field in the final 7+ minutes. It's unbelievable. Shouts to Damian Dunn, the Temple wing who came off the bench, scored a team high 16 points, a game high 16 points. Marcus Sasser had 12, Jamal Shedd had 13. And as the Bengals-Bills game was, it wasn't a snoozer, but the Bengals cruised to a 27-10 win. This wound up being, the breaking news, the big news in sports on Sunday there for Temple, which has just been toiling a bit. This is a program that is in need of a jolt. It is a program that I did have in my preseason top 101 teams. It's not there yet. It entered the day 130th in KenPom. It's up to 113 after getting this win, but it has not made the NCAA tournament since Fran Dunphy's last season in 2019, has not won multiple games or won a game in the tournament to get to the second round since 2013. So a lot of pride at that program. It's a good weekend in that city. The Eagles blast the Giants on Saturday night. And then even though this game didn't happen in the city of brotherly love, because again, Temple did this on the road against Houston, still a nice win. And Temple is now 6-2 in the American Athletic Conference, and now just a half game behind Houston, which takes its first loss in league play there, and obviously still the overwhelming favorite to win the AAC. I do wonder if this will have a significant impact on Houston's chances at the number one overall seed. It's a quad 3 loss, and had Houston been able to take care of business here, it was tracking toward being the team most likely to be the number one overall seed because it only had one loss. This does throw some doubt into that. We'll see if it can recover and really steamroll the rest of the conference. There's no guarantee of that. You take a loss like this, 56-55, and it just brings an element into doubt onto the table, at least, that wasn't there prior to this. Kelvin Sampson, he took responsibility afterward, telling the media, quote, "The only finger that should be pointed here is at me. I'm the coach," end quote. Another one, "We had a bad day, but we still have a good team. All of our dreams and goals are still ahead of us," end quote. And then one more, he said, quote, "We could never just make the big play. We needed the big shot," end quote. And they didn't have it there. And Houston is known for its defensive prowess. It's actually a pretty good offensive team as well. Here's where this can sometimes bite you, though. If you're a really good defensive team and a good or pretty good, but not a great offensive team. Like Houston doesn't rank top 80 in the country in 3-point accuracy. It doesn't rank top 80 in the country in 2-point accuracy, but it is fairly efficient. It does not play a ton of possessions. So because of that, you can sometimes find yourself, you look up, there's a minute and a half to go in the game, and you're in a one possession game, and it's 51-48. It's 56-53. It's 57 all. And if you're playing an inferior opponent and it's been able to survive with you for 57, 58 minutes, then you can really get yourself into a bit of a pickle there. Houston had not been slumping as of late. It previously had won games by 20 points. It did have a narrow one against South Florida, but easily beat Cincinnati on the road, destroyed SMU, got a good home win against UCF. So yeah, there is a decent element of surprise with this one. And for as surprising as and we're going to get to Kansas TCU in just a second here, GP and I, for as surprising as that one was, this was even more surprising. In fact, to mention Kansas, according to ESPN Stats and Info, Kansas losing to TCU on Saturday, Houston losing on Sunday to Temple. It's the first time, the AP poll goes back to the late 40s. We had never had number 1 and number 2 in the AP top 25 lose at home in back-to-back days. Those two teams, number 1, number 2, back-to-back losses, both at home. So we did have some history there. And it was the biggest win for an underdog over a top-ranked team since trivia time. I'm asking myself, I'm actually asking you, the viewer, the listener, I think you can get it. I'm going to give you about 5-10 seconds to think about it. What do you think the last time when a number 1 team fell, that it was a bigger spread? This is gettable. Now, if you really want to think, this is when you pause the podcast, or if you want to know right away, I'm going to tell you in about 3 seconds here. Remember that famous ending in 2019 at Cameron Indoor Stadium? Stephen F. Austin was a 27.5-point dog when it beat Duke on a last-second layup at Cameron Indoor. Shouts to Nathan Bain, I believe. I'm pulling that off the top of my head, but I believe Nathan Bain was the one that did that there. And the fact that Temple did this, it shot 31% from the field. Again, no buckets in the final 7 minutes. It gets the win. It's a little bit incriminating on Houston, but it also, and my last thing, and then we'll get to the rest of the pod here, it also is a commentary on, yeah, I will buy into there's not a great team right now. I will buy into that for now. I'm still maintaining that you could, like, Alabama's playing better than anyone in the country. GP, rightfully so, is going to have Purdue in the top, in the one spot of his top 25 and 1. Now, Bama fans are going to push back on that. Bama, I think, is irrefutably playing better than anyone in the country at the moment. Purdue has a really, really strong resume. And Parrish has said this plenty of times, but I'm going to defend my buddy here. When he is ranking his teams and doing it primarily off of resume and accomplishment, Purdue is as strong as anyone. The Boilermakers are now 19-1. You'll hear us talk about them in real time as they're playing Maryland later on in this episode there. Houston, by the way, in real time here as we record this, I refreshed KenPom. Still, from an efficiency standpoint, Houston still ranks number 1 at KenPom, even with this loss there. But yeah, a sizable upset. We'll see where we go with the Cougars from here, and we will see, the projections on Palm's bracket. I'd be interested to know if this would knock them from the perch of a 1 seed. I think there might be a case for it. It's a quad 3 loss. It's kind of damaging, but we'll see. But an emergency recording for the front end of the pod here, and that's all I got. The rest of the episode is a lot of fun. We really take an unexpected swerve and tangent on a non-hoops topic near the end that I think you might enjoy. But there's so much to get to. A lot of fun evals of the biggest results over the weekend. Here's the rest of the podcast with me and GP.
Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, please go ahead and smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. You know he would do it. You have consent. If you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, please knock that out while you're here. Let's get into it. The most notable result from the weekend originated in Lawrence, Kansas. Final score, TCU 83, Kansas 60. Jamie Dixon's Horned Frogs went to Allen Fieldhouse and led by double digits, not even 10 minutes after tip-off. It was a double-digit lead the entire second half. TCU led by as many as 25, won by 23. It is the Horned Frogs' first ever win at Kansas. Dead leg, you can obviously take it wherever you want to take it. But first question, does tell you more about TCU or Kansas? This beatdown that we watched inside the Phog.
Yeah, classic. What did we learn more about which team? That's a good one, man, because you can make strong arguments for both there. I will lean TCU in this spot. Now, Parrish, shocking outcome. Come on, right? Shocking. TCU had lost 3 of 4. It's at Kansas, had never won in the building, had never beaten a top 10 team on the road in the history of its program, the Horned Frogs. And then they go in and kick ass and win 83-60.
Let me put it. Let me put it this way. Anytime anybody other than Kansas wins by 23 or more points inside Allen Fieldhouse, it is a shocking result, regardless of year, decade, anything.
Agreed. The hardwood Hypnotoads might have, they didn't necessarily turn their season around because their season wasn't in dire straits or anything like that, but had lost 3 of 4. And by nature of winning at Kansas, would easily register as having a top 10 win, if not a top 5 win of value now overall. There was an aberrational aspect to this game in that TCU walked right into the phog, and a team that was shooting 28% from 3-point range winds up having its best performance from behind the arc the entire season, man. TCU only took 15, but made 8 of them. That's good for 53.3% there. And so we'll get to Kansas, but I do want to focus on those hardwood Hypnotoads here, because it was only TCU's 4th win in its history against Kansas. 3 of those 4 are responsible with Jamie Dixon coaching the Horned Frogs there. And they have had some highs, TCU has, as a program. You might recall some years back, TCU actually won in Fort Worth when Kansas was ranked 1st, also has a win previously over a 6th-ranked Kansas team. And overall, TCU is experiencing something right now. Like, big picture, TCU has 32 wins against ranked teams in its history. 32 all time, TCU's program. More than half of that, 17 of those wins, have been with Jamie Dixon on staff. So what Jamie Dixon has done at TCU has analogs to what Scott Drew has done at Baylor. The highs haven't been as high. It hasn't happened as long. But when you go and look at notes and records at Baylor, and it's like Baylor's done A through Z ever, and 80 to 90% of the accomplishments we've ever had have happened under Scott Drew. A lot of that is now happening under Jamie Dixon, as GP mentioned. Highest rank win on the road in program history. In fact, they had never beaten a team ranked 14th or better on the road ever. And to do it the way that it did it, I mean, the last time TCU had a win approaching this level in terms of margin, let alone the team, was 1988 when they beat San Jose State by 35. So, yeah, it was stunning. Bill Self lost by 25 against Texas in 2021, and certainly that was notable because they rarely lose, and they almost never lose by double digits in that building. But the fact that TCU went in, shot well, played well, was better on the boards than Kansas, which was also notable because TCU is a decent rebounding team. But as I mentioned on Friday's pod, like, they do like to push the pace, and then Eddie Lampkin gets helped off the floor in the moment. Like, you don't know what it is. In fact, there was a local beat writer who cited TCU's in a tweet that was soon deleted after, saying that it was a torn ACL or a torn Achilles. And I was like, they know it already? That was quickly deleted, and it wasn't true. It was just a high ankle sprain. Lampkin got back in the game, went Willis Reed out there, and was able to help TCU on the boards there. So to me, the story is more about what the Horned Frogs were able to do. This team still ranks 335th in the country in 3-point percentage, GP. I mean, it's not even hitting 30% of its threes. So this was a one game kind of thing, and it's not going to suddenly turn into a reliable team from deep, but it does so many other things really, really well. And the fact that Shahada Wells had one of the best games of his career, came off the bench, had 17 points in addition to Miles and Bach combining for 26. Super impressive. In fact, if I'm honest, I was waiting for the Kansas run to happen, but they got out so early that they didn't have to worry about that juju and that Phog Allen voodoo, because it just did not come into play, other than maybe that Lampkin scare with the injury. But he ultimately he toughed it out, and that dude is one of the more enjoyable players to watch in the sport. So for me, if I had to make it about one team more than the other slightly, I would pick TCU.
After the game, I don't know if you saw the quotes from Bill Self, but he was like, everything they did was perfect. He was like, TCU played the perfect basketball game, and he was like, we couldn't get good shots. When we did get good shots, we missed them. We couldn't guard anybody. It's basically everything they did was perfect. Everything we did was really, really bad. You mentioned TCU was 1-3 in its previous 4 games. That's now 2-3 in its previous 5, with wins over Kansas State and Kansas. So it's an interesting little 5-game stretch for the Horned Frogs that tells you just how difficult it is living life in the Big 12. Like a good Big 12 team can lose to bottom tier Big 12 team or beat the best. Like that's the way it is in that league. You're going to see it throughout the rest of January, February into early March. Horned Frogs are now 15-4 overall, 4-3 in the Big 12, 5-3 in quadrant 1, 2-0 in quadrant 2. So 7-3 in the first 2 quadrants with a quad 4 loss to Northwestern State also on the resume. We've talked about that before. Very early in the season, 2 of the top 3 players weren't playing. That's the explanation for that result. If not for that, I think TCU would be a consensus top 10 team come Monday and might crack the top 10 on Monday either way. But right now I've got TCU at 12th in the top 25-1. They are one of 6 Big 12 teams that I have in the top 16 of the top 25-1 right now. Kansas State at number 4, followed by number 6 Texas, number 8 Kansas, number 11 Iowa State, number 12 TCU, and number 16 Baylor. As for Kansas, this is the first time Kansas has lost back-to-back Big 12 games, with one of the losses coming at home since February 2013. So that's notable. But as I wrote Saturday night, Kansas is still 16-3 with 7 quadrant 1 wins and 0 losses outside of quadrant 1. Only Purdue also has 7 quadrant 1 wins. Nobody has more. And Kansas is still 3rd in BPI, or KPI rather, 7th in Sagarin, 8th in the net, 9th at KenPom, in the top 10 of most computers. Beyond that, still got a resume that would get a top 2 seed in the NCAA tournament if we were doing that today. So I did drop the Jayhawks once again in the top 25-1, but only down to number 8. What happened Saturday, it was shocking and bad, but this is still a team that's got the best coach in college basketball in Bill Self, a likely first-team All-American in Jalen Wilson, a possible NBA draft lottery pick in Grady Dick, and a championship-level point guard in DeJuan Harris. According to all the metrics, this is still one of the best teams in the country. And so, yeah, it was a bad week for the Jayhawks, first losing at Kansas State and then getting smashed at home by TCU. But this is still a good team, one I continue to believe can theoretically win the 2023 NCAA tournament. Quick turnaround for them. Kansas is at Baylor on Monday night. So that's the 2021 national champs against the 2022 national champs. KenPom's got it projected Baylor 76, Kansas 74. And if Kansas loses, it'll be just the second 3-game losing streak for the Jayhawks in a 10-year span. Trivia, MF in time. When was KU's last 3-game losing streak?
Okay. Is it, so one of my younger brothers went out, he was driving cross country, and the way that it all landed is he was driving through Kansas when Texas Tech was at the Phog. This was, I want to say, early January of 18, and Tech won the game. So he was in the building for a rare self-home loss. So I'm going to say, I think it was 18. It was definitely early January. That is my guess. I think it was 17, 18. It might have been 18, 19. But anyway, that is my guess, is that it was in that span. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I dead wrong?
You are wrong. You are right in the sense that there is a game that Texas Tech played at Kansas in the 2018 season in January, and Texas Tech won that game 85-73. But Kansas had won its 4 games prior to that, and after losing to Texas Tech, went on a 5-game winning streak. So that was just one surprising loss in an otherwise nice stretch. The actual answer, I thought you might get it because you referenced the 2021 season earlier. It was January 2021. 3 straight losses at Oklahoma State, at Baylor, at Oklahoma. So they were all road losses. But that is the last 3-game losing streak and the only 3-game losing streak Kansas has experienced in the past 9 seasons. That's the season, by the way, Kansas finished 5 games back of Baylor in the loss column of the Big 12 standings. But it should be noted, Baylor played 4 fewer league games that season. Baylor was 13-1 in the Big 12 because it lost 4 games to COVID. Kansas was 12-6 in the league. Baylor went on to win the national title that season. Kansas went on to, do you remember this? Lose to USC by 34 points.
I do remember. I didn't know if you were going to mention it, but I do remember it because I'm pretty sure my bracket picked USC to do that exact thing. Not by 34. I had the Trojans advancing and Kansas actually ending its tournament run there. But yeah.
So KU fans know this: if you lose Monday night, you will be on only the second 3-game losing streak of a 10-year span. And the last time you had a 3-game losing streak, you lost by 34 points in the second round of the NCAA tournament. I'm not predicting anything like that again. I'm still high on Kansas. Got them 8th in the top 25-1, but there's the history for you.
All right, before we move on, a couple things. First of all, must give credit to just a legendary broadcaster. Here we go. Did you catch that?
Of course.
Okay, let's do that one more time. Iron Eagle, the legend. I wish I had better audio. This is
I do too. I do too. I wish you had better audio too.
Oh gosh, I know. I need an actual. I need the high quality audio. Iron Eagle, you're amazing. Thank you. I was watching that. That was the dominant volume game, and I'm watching, but I'm like 70% paying attention. And just I hear Iron Eagle, and I double take it, and then I was like, did I actually hear him say that? And sure enough.
Well, for people who don't know, because Ian is one of the great play-by-play guys like in the world, regardless of sports. He's terrific. All right, that goes without saying. Yes. If you watch sports, you know that. What I don't know if people actually know is that he is also hilarious. Like actually hilarious, like off camera, just sitting around talking. He's like a legitimately funny guy. Like he'll make you laugh. And so that was one of those moments where he was being a great play-by-play guy and also funny.
Very funny. All right. And then last thing on this is by nature, Purdue, you're messing up our whole podcast flow. What are you doing here? So by nature of Kansas losing, Kansas gets bumped off of Palm's 1 line. Hey, K-State fans, you took care of business. You beat Texas Tech. Jared Palm says you're a 1 seed right now. So K-State leapfrogs because of the loss to the Frogs by Kansas. K-State leapfrogs Kansas on the 1 line. Houston's there. Houston won on Sunday. Bama's there. Bama didn't have any trouble with a shorthanded Missouri team. And Purdue is there. Maybe Purdue's there, win or lose. But as we record this live, shouts to everyone on YouTube. It's 50, and I'm probably about 45 seconds behind in real time because I'm streaming up here in my office. I got 56-53 Purdue with 1:15 to go against Maryland. Full transparency, we programmed this podcast. Edie misses the putback, thinking that Purdue would not be having trouble with a Maryland team that cannot ever win at Mackey. But it is a 1-possession game with 70 seconds to go. If Maryland winds up winning this, we will cover this and talk about it in real time on the pod as we go along here. But right now, Purdue in K-State 1 seeds.
You realize like 98% of the people, 99% of the people who are going to listen to this are going to know everything about that game by the time they hear this podcast.
They get the real-time experience though.
If I were putting in rules for the podcast, I would say don't talk about in-progress games because they'll be over by the time most people listen to this.
Yeah, but it's more organic. It's natural that way. That's all. Anyway, Purdue is currently a 1 seed according to Jerry Palm. If it loses this game, maybe it won't be. That's what I was bringing that up for.
I would argue Purdue should still be a 1 seed even if it loses this game.
You know what? I completely agree with that.
All right. You ready to move on?
Let's go. Scary
Incident this weekend came inside the Dean Smith Center during North Carolina's eventual 80-69 win over NC State. NC State star Taquavion Smith had to be placed on a stretcher after a hard fall caused by Ion College basketball podcast legend Leaky Black. I feel like on some level, in some weird unit, we were responsible for just me. I'll take responsibility for this. We'll get into it next. First, though, a word from our partners.
Don't stop watching. Leo Messi, the man, the myth, the legend, the GOAT. Utterly explosive. The UEFA Champions League. Stream PSG matches live February on Paramount+.
So the scariest scene of the weekend, it came inside the Dean Smith Center during North Carolina's 80-69 win over NC State. NC State star Taquavion Smith had to be placed on a stretcher after a hard fall caused by a hard foul from Leaky Black. He missed the final 9:45 of the game. Leaky Black was ejected. The good news, because this does have some good news, is that the injury isn't as bad as it looked or seemed in real time. All x-rays were negative. Terquavion is now listed as day-to-day. And before you ask the obvious question of, hold up, how can a dude be removed from an arena on a stretcher and then just be fine? It's a fair question. The answer to that question is that Terquavion told medical officials while he was lying there that he had neck pain. And those medical officials are required to use a backboard and stretcher to move him once they are told he has any neck pain whatsoever. It's simply precautionary protocols. So did he need a stretcher to leave the arena? Probably not. But the medical officials were required to use one. So that's what they did. Like, what'd you make of the entire incident? Let's start here. Dirty foul or just a hard foul in an intense game between rivals?
Hard foul, intense game between rivals. And,
I
Leaky Black actually he had the eyes of a concerned human being. Now, Taquavion went down, and then it took about, 12, 13 minutes between the foul and actually rolling him off the floor on the gurney. But you could see that his feet and legs were constantly moving.
Right.
So that was an immediately good sign that despite all that, and they did deem it a flagrant 2. I don't know if it was a flagrant 2 or not. They actually, the broadcast, as best I could tell, and I had it on throughout this whole thing, I don't know if they showed more than a single replay on this, and watching it in real time was just, it was, first of all, it was a very competitive game, and NC State was flirting with making you look okay with covering. That did not wind up happening, by the way. But Leaky, it was not ill-intended. He actually, and then Leaky obviously went to social media after and sent a message of support and regret over the nature of the foul. They gave it a flagrant 2, I think, because of Terquavion actually suffering the injury, which, I understand. If flagrant 2 is an automatic ejected, so Leaky had to leave the premises there. But the good news is that Terquavion appears to be okay in day-to-day. He's by the way, he's their best player. He's an NBA prospect. He was one of the most talented players last season to opt not to go to the NBA and return to college. He's the biggest reason why NC State has some viable NCAA tournament hopes, and what's an interesting year for Kevin Keatts and that staff. They got, it's something of a prove-it season overall. So I'm glad that he's okay. We'll see how soon he can return. And that was one thing among many notable things, but that was obviously the most urgent, concerning, and newsworthy was the injury. But Sunday morning brought good news on Terquavion's behalf.
Yeah, like when I was watching, it's obviously scary because you realize he's not getting up, and they're going to move him out on a stretcher. But like what I feel like we know now is he wasn't getting up because they said don't move.
Yeah.
And because as I was it's like his legs are moving, his arms are moving, great sign. And then you go back and watch the fall. It's a hard fall, but I didn't see how he'd have a potential neck injury with that fall. Like I watched it over and over again, and I was like if you told me his ass bone was cracked, that would make sense. And yes, that is a technical term, ass bone.
Yeah, you are. But
I am a doctor, and I've studied ass bones. If you would have told me his ass bone was cracked, that would make sense. But I didn't understand neck injury. But again, what we found out is once he says he has some numbness in an arm and neck pain, and they're like, all right, don't move. Let's go. Because if you don't follow protocols then you end up in a lawsuit. Nobody wants any part of that. So that's the explanation for all that. I was fine with Leaky being ejected from the game, but I also don't think it was dirty. I think it was a guy aggressively going to the rim and a guy aggressively trying to, stop the dunk attempt or layup attempt or whatever that was going to be. And then what happened. But I didn't think it was dirty. And I like you, noticed Leaky's face. He looked like somebody who was concerned, not somebody who had just, knocked a rival out of the game, but somebody who looked concerned. Sometimes when you're watching a baseball game and a pitcher will hit somebody, like a fastball gets away from him, and and they get real, like it upsets you. You're okay, and it wasn't intentional, but on some level, I am responsible for what just happened to this person, and that can really shake you. And that's what I saw when I saw Leaky monitoring the situation. And he, like you said, he addressed it on social media. And what I read is that he had also gotten Terquavion's number so that he could reach out and make in-person contact. So that's the good news. From a basketball perspective, I kept it. I struggled with this, like what to do, because I had NC State like all the way up at 17 in the top 25 and won. And I know the computer numbers don't match that, but they've got a resume that puts them in top 25 and one range. And so I kept them in. I dropped them some, but I kept NC State in the top 25 and one. They're still 6-5 in the first two quadrants with 0 additional losses. For some context, just because we talked about this earlier in the week or last week, North Carolina is still 5-6 in the first two quadrants, below 500. Duke is 5-5. Wake is 5-5. And Wake also has a loss outside of the first two quadrants. So this remains true. NC State is still, even after Saturday's loss, the only school in the state of North Carolina above 500 in the first two quadrants. Got wins over Duke, Miami, Dayton. So I still have them 20th in the top 25 and one. Meantime, North Carolina's 9-2 in its past 11 games. Wins over NC State, Ohio State, Michigan, Wake. They seem to be headed back in the right direction. Next 3 games are at Syracuse on Tuesday. Then they're off like for a while. They host Pitt on February 1st, then at Duke, the first of 2 meetings on February 4th. So those are the next 3 for Hubert Davis's team. Not quite top 25 and one good from my perspective yet, but starting to look the part, no question.
And how about the milestone achieved by Armando Bacot? He set the program record for rebounds. He's now at 1,221 and double-doubles with 61. He broke Tyler Hansbrough, perhaps you've heard of him, his all-time rebound record at the school. And Billy Cunningham, another Tar Heel great, had the double-double record all-time at 60. So in this game, he got that done. Bacot's now 8th all-time in ACC history with rebounds. Next on the list is Duke's Mike Jaminski. He's like 21 behind. He could pass him in the next game. Bacot is actually, he helped carry Carolina to a title game. He is approaching, if not there. I mean, he's now the career leader in rebounds and double-doubles, and he's climbing up the points list. Top 15 all-time Tar Heel. When you really look at what he's been able to do from a production standpoint, maybe not one of the 15 most talented, but just in terms of 4-year great college player, he's getting up there. And he had 23 and 18 in this game. He's now had 50 boards in his past 3 games. I mean, he's a machine when he's healthy, but it's not just him. You know, RJ Davis had 26 against NC State. And it was a weird game for North Carolina in that it didn't shoot well. It had its worst shooting performance of the season, GP. They shot 37% from the field. That's the lowest. That's the worst they've been. But they set a program record for the best free throw percentage with at least 30 attempts from the foul line. UNC went 36 of 39 from the line, 92.3%. They'd never had a game that good from the foul line in the history of their program. So it was because, and I know NC State probably fans watching this, and I heard a little bit of chatter on this on Twitter. I get all that. You're going to watch a game. You love your team. I understand. I get it. And it was at the Dean Dome. But UNC went to the line 39 times and hit 36 of those shots. Davis had 26 points. Davis, when he gets 20 or more, UNC is 10-0. And RJ Davis is a better player than Caleb Love. UNC fans have known this. I've been saying this for the better part of a year. There is just something about the way that he plays and how he plays that I think makes, and Caleb Love is a very good player. He hit a runner on the baseline here that kind of clinched it. And he's also a very good player. And I don't want to pit one guy absolutely against the other, but I'm going to do it right now. Like if you told me I could have RJ Davis or Caleb Love, I want both of them, but I would take RJ Davis. So between Bacot's dominance down low and RJ Davis continuing to be a guy who has this knack about him in getting Carolina to another level, I think that's really, really important to UNC advancing more into the season. They were able to pass NC State in the league standings and, still stay within shouting distance of Clemson, the overall ACC standings. And a pretty historic day there on Saturday. And UNC winds up, being able to scooch away with the win. Now Carolina is 36-5 in its last 41 games against the Wolfpack.
Well, that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
I I didn't remember or realize rather that RJ Davis is now North Carolina's second leading scorer behind Armando Bacot, ahead of Caleb Love. But he is at 16.8 points per game. Here's the difference. I mean, there's a lot of differences, but the main one, RJ Davis is shooting 45% from the field. Caleb Love, 37.7. RJ Davis is shooting 38.8% from three. Caleb Love, 26.8. He's just a more efficient guard. Like, Caleb Love's going to get more shots up, but RJ Davis is going to have the better game more often than not. So he's obviously huge for them. And, like I said, the resume is the resume. But if you told me Carolina was getting ready to, continue a nice little stretch and position itself to maybe go compete for another trip to the Final Four after a rough start to the season, that wouldn't be surprising to me. Like I said, they're starting to look the part. Before we look ahead to the next couple of nights, I do want to bounce around to some other notable results from the weekend. Arizona beat UCLA 58-52. The Bruins still have a 2-game lead in the loss column in the Pac-12 standings, but Arizona was able to win that home game. Virginia won at Wake Forest 76-67. Oklahoma State knocked off Iowa State. Big win from Mike Boynton, 61-59. Duke beat Miami 68-66, got Jeremy Roach back. UConn broke out of its funk, blasted Butler 86-56. Indiana beat Michigan State 82-69. And Purdue has just gone final, dead leg.
I was going to say it. Go ahead.
Has beaten Maryland 58-55 to remain a one-loss team. What stands out from the weekend from what I just said, or anything else other than what we've already discussed?
Let me just make sure. I heard most of what you said there, but at the start of that, I was just making sure Maryland didn't hit the three at the buzzer descents to OT. Did you say we're going to get to the Trace stuff in Indiana after this, or was that in the whole group there?
It's in there. Indiana beat Michigan State 82-69. You can celebrate Trace Jackson Davis if you like.
Let's talk Trace. Yeah, let's lead on that. That was obviously the game on Sunday that led into Bills Bengals on CBS there, and Indiana got a definitive win, a good win. I think an important win, not just for the resume, but for the morale of that program. A third straight win following a 3-game losing streak prior to that, and leveling up at 4-4 in the Big Ten standings right now. With Purdue winning, Purdue maintains a 2-game lead in the conference ledger overall. Trace Jackson Davis, last week's court report, I had my mid-season All-American first team list, I guess you could call it. Zach Edey, obviously. And then I would put Drew Timme number 2. Timme had like 37 over the
38.
weekend. It was a 38. He had a 38, and he was awesome. Timme, I think, is a strong, firm number 2. And then you get into Jalen Wilson, Brandon Miller. I think it's those 4. But I think on the heels of what Trace did on Sunday, I would put Trace 5. And then right behind him, Jaime Jaquez, Keontae Johnson are right there. Marcus Sasser's in that company, but maybe just a narrow notch below. Trace Jackson Davis went for 31, 15, and 5 on Sunday. Was a beast again. His last 6 games.
Yeah.
He missed a couple of games around Christmas. Since coming back from that, 24.3 points, 13.3 boards. This is including Sunday's stat line. 4.7 assists and 3.7 blocks. 24, 13, almost 5 assists and almost 4 blocks a game in his past 6. For the season, he's up to about 20 a night, 10.5 rebounds, nearly 4 assists, and better than 3 blocks per night. I think right now he would have to be your 5th first-team All-American. And this is not a surprise. I had him as a preseason first-team All-American. I expected this, but man, is it refreshing to watch him be this good, because he is a really, really, really fun player. He's about as fun of a player there is to watch who does not have any kind of threat to beat you from 12 feet and out. It's not easy to be a big man that doesn't have a perimeter game or really much of a mid-range game and still be entertaining to watch. But Trace has that. And thankfully for Indiana, they got, like, Tamar Bates had one of his best games on Sunday of his entire career. He and Trey Galloway, we each went for 17. They combined to shoot and make 8 3-pointers. That was a major help. That was big. They're going to need that. Trace Jackson Davis cannot carry Indiana to the NCAA tournament by himself, although at points it looks like he's damn good enough to do that. But I at least want to just shine a bit of a light on him, because he is becoming one of the biggest stories Traces in the month of January, thanks to getting Indiana on a 3-game winning streak. You know, they were convincingly beat Illinois last Thursday. And prior to that, they had a no doubt about it win against Wisconsin. So it's not just 3 wins in a row. It's 3 wins by double digits against teams that are tracking to make the tournament. Bucky, the Illini, and then Sparty. Next up, you got to think, no, nothing's guaranteed, but they got a roadie Wednesday against Minnesota. Indiana fans, I know exactly what you're thinking. Like, we're feeling good. Don't have me squeezing my ass bone on Wednesday night playing against Minnesota. Like, just don't do this to me. I don't want to be locked in on a game with 3 minutes to go and we're only up on 3 on the Gophers. So I get all of that, without a doubt. I'm looking forward to seeing this team in person. I will be in the building on Saturday when they play Ohio State, and hopefully they can keep it going. But I at least wanted to give I think coming out of Sunday, he is officially a first-team All-American now. But and you want to put it's still Edey's award to lose, Big Ten Player of the Year, National Player, unquestionably still Edey's to lose. But Trace, I think you can fairly say he's in the race, and he's been one of the best players of the past 3 weeks in college basketball.
What if they have to clench their ass bone the entire game against the Golden Gophers? Leads to an interesting question.
Oh boy.
Has a Golden Gopher ever led to you clenching your ass bone?
Me personally, I'm blessed. I can say that's never been the case.
I can say that's never been my case either.
We are living a large life in that regard. I will give a shout to Joey Hauser. He had a tremendous game for Michigan State. And then Michigan State got up early, but Indiana turned it on him. Sparty, they're having a little bit of up, down, up, down. They've now lost 3 of 4, and next up is a home game against Iowa there. Let's talk Wildcats Bruins. Omar Ballo had 16-8. Azuolas Tubelis 14-10. UCLA threatened like in the final 2 minutes, GP, but eventually, Arizona gets the 58-52 win. This was the 50th victory of Lloyd's career. He's the fastest Pac-12 coach to ever get to 50 wins. We might have to get him at the table with Mick Cronin, let alone John Wooden there, I guess. And they do it with the.
Are we ready to call Tommy Lloyd the greatest coach in Arizona history? I'll do it.
I can't do that to Lute just yet. But we're on a fast track for sure.
I thought you were picking between Tommy Lloyd and Russ Pennell. But it's Lute, you said.
That's no longer up for debate. Yeah, I think we can safely say that that race is no longer in need of being run. 58 points for Arizona was the fewest they'd ever scored. Could you catch Tommy is as free-flowing, affable as almost any coach in the game, certainly at the high major level. And it was competitive going into going into the break of that game. I guess it was on ABC. So Holly Rowe had the interview, and Tommy, I completely understand, but he just looked, like, oh God, UCLA is just it's a pain in my ass bone. I don't want anything to do with this right now, but they get the win, man. I think it's actually a good sign. That's why I wanted to bring this up and wanted to ask you. Arizona wins despite not cracking 60 for the first time. Well, it was the first time they had won despite not scoring 60 points since 2015. And that was also a win over UCLA almost 8 years ago. Good sign, in your opinion, UCLA not beating Arizona, and so Arizona winning ugly? Would you say that you are more in on Arizona, equally in on Arizona, less in on Arizona? It wins, but it didn't win it the way it wanted to win it. UCLA dictated a lot of this tempo, and UCLA had its own issues there. Tiger Campbell only had 13 points to lead the Bruins there. But I actually found myself kind of encouraged. If these teams played again tomorrow on a neutral court in the middle of Goldsboro, North Carolina, I don't know who I'd take, but I actually thought it was a good sign for the Wildcats. What about you?
I'll put it this way. Obviously, you beat UCLA, it's a good sign for the Wildcats. And I know that technically, if you see the Final Four and 1 picks, that I went with UCLA, but that's only because I was forced to go opposite you in game 3.
This is your rule. I'm not forcing you to keep the rule. You can change it if you want.
I need to.
You're like, I got no choice.
I need to, because I said a million times last week, like I wouldn't pick anybody to go win at the McKell Center. So no, I don't think UCLA is going to go win at the McKell Center. But then I got to pick UCLA because some stupid rule I made up.
Yeah, and I think you made it up, like you improv'd it on one episode, and you're just like, well, this is my life now. So you did it too.
Why do I make my life more complicated than it has to be?
I don't know.
I don't know either. To your point, I'll say this. UCLA still has a 2-game lead in the loss column of the Pac-12 standings over Arizona and everybody else. I have UCLA ranked higher than Arizona. I don't think there's much of a difference between these two teams. Like, I mean, style of play, of course, but in terms of quality of team/ceiling, I don't think there's much difference between these two teams. Like, wherever you tell me And I know you're a big believer in UCLA. You had the Bruins ranked number 1 in your power rankings last week. But wherever you told me you think UCLA is capable of going, I would tell you I think Arizona is capable of going to the exact same place. On UCLA, let me ask you this, because some people pointed this out. It's not something I didn't know, but it is something people are noticing. UCLA, I had 4th in the top 25 and 1 on Saturday. They lose a competitive game at Arizona. I dropped them to 5. I still had them in the top 5.
Okay.
UCLA has 0 wins over top 30 KenPom teams. Like, their best win might be Kentucky. Does that bother you?
Ooh, it doesn't bother me only because I've seen them play enough. I've seen them play enough, and I am in on their starting 5, and I'm in on how good defensively they are. So if you want to hold the resume against them, sure. But that's also something of a function of the league UCLA is playing in, and these teams will face again. We don't get UCLA versus Arizona again until the last Saturday of the regular season, so we're going to have to wait a while. And I just brought it up. Yeah, they don't even have a top GP right now. They don't have a top 40 opponent again on the schedule until Arizona. So that's going to remain true, but that's not dissuading me. If we had a bracket formed right now tonight, no matter where you put UCLA, what seed line, what region, I would strongly consider writing that team into a Final Four. Not a guarantee, but you'd have to really talk me out of not putting them Elite 8 minimum right now.
Yeah, and the computer numbers are super duper strong. And I'm with you. The fact that UCLA doesn't have a top 30 win has more to do with has everything to do with UCLA's schedule and nothing to do with the quality of UCLA. In other words, you took UCLA, put them in the Big 12. They'd have all these opportunities against top 30 teams, and they'd win a lot of them. They'd win most of them. I think this is one of the best teams in the country. It's just, the Pac-12's down. It's UCLA, Arizona, and then who else do you trust in the league? Arizona State?
There's no one to trust. I want to say you asked me this 2 weeks ago. There's no one else to trust in the league other than UCLA and Arizona. The next team that I think would have the potential to do that, I don't know. USC, maybe? Maybe USC?
Maybe.
I don't know. But no, that's a grab bag. Who's to say? Utah, Arizona State, Oregon just lost. Like, Oregon's getting healthy and it just lost over the weekend. So no, it's not a good year for the Pac-12, and yet it still rates better in the net and a KenPom than the ACC, and actually comfortably rates better thanks to non-conference performance there. Because UCLA lost, by the way, Charleston and Florida Atlantic extended their winning streaks. Those are the two notable. Charleston has the best record, or has the most wins. Charleston right now is 21-1 with a 20-1 record against D1 competition. Florida Atlantic is 19-1 with a 17-1 record against D1 competition. A trivia time.
Okay, let's go.
Who has let's see if you can get this. If you get it, that means you've definitely looked in the past 14 hours, because I did not know it. Who has the 3rd longest winning streak in the country? Not a power conference team.
Not a power conference team.
Head coach is a massive Pearl Jam fan.
Coach is a massive Pearl Jam fan. Massive Pearl Jam fan. So head coach is white. That's what you mean by that?
Head coach is white.
Okay. Got a white head coach. I'm going to know this when you say it, because
you think you might have considered him.
No, because I remember you doing the thing where every coach had to say his favorite band, and somebody said Pearl Jam. And
what though? I think when I did that, a couple coaches made it. I think I'm bringing that back this year. By the way, I was going to do it the pandemic year when we didn't have a tournament, and that went out the window. But I might bring back the coaches' favorite bands March Madness bracket. That was a lot of fun. When I did that, Kristoviak at Utah, who's literally friends with the guys in Pearl Jam, was on it, and Wayne Tinkle, who went to I'm pretty sure Wayne Tinkle went to the same. No, Kristoviak went to the same high school. One of the two went to the same high school as Jeff Ament, the bass player. And so they're both like friends with the band, and Oregon State made it that year. So I think that's why the Pearl Jam was in there multiple times. The answer is Rob Senderoff's Kent State Golden Flash.
I knew that, yes.
10 in a row. That is your 3rd longest winning streak in the country. Just keep it in mind. Golden Flashes are now up to 52. And we did a triple handoff last week, right? Cinderella candidates that you'd consider capable of winning multiple games in the tournament, I put Kent State there. The only losses at Charleston by 2, at Houston by 5, and they were up on Gonzaga with 2 minutes to go. That's Kent State's only losses there. So they don't have a high-end win, but the really good teams they played, they all played close. Keep that in mind. I also, speaking of mid-majors, I did want to at least bring up Antoine Davis. We had a story go up on him over the weekend because he is now Antoine Davis of Detroit Mercy in this bonus. It is a bonus COVID year that he has been afforded, but he is second all-time on the all-time Division I men's leading scoring list. He passed Freeman Williams, the Portland State star, who was number 2 ever since he got to that list in the late 70s. But Detroit Mercy got a win over the weekend, 89-77 over IUPUI. Davis went off for 42. It was a second straight game of 40-plus. He now does Antoine Davis at 3,274 points. That is 393 away from Pete Maravich. Again, reminder, Pete Maravich went for 36-67 in 3 years without a three-point line. Okay, so he will forever hold the all-time points average record. Davis right now is averaging 27 points flat. Here's the bummer, and I detailed this in last week's court report. This is not a good team. This would be such a better story if Detroit Mercy was first, second, or third in the Horizon League. They're 8-12. So they have 10 regular season games remaining, and at least they are guaranteed. The Horizon puts everyone in its postseason bracket. So they're guaranteed at least 11 more games. But at his current average of 27, which he just bumped up to 27 because he's gone for 83 in his past 2 games. If he played out 11 more games, his current average, he'd finish at 35-71. That would be 96 points shy of the Maravich record. So he either Detroit Mercy needs to get to the Horizon League finals or like win the auto bid, creep into the tournament, or he's got to like average 30-31 to really make this in doubt. I don't think he's going to get there, but at least it's interesting. Like he's not averaging 19 a game. Like he's up to 27. He leads the nation in scoring, and he officially went to number 2 over the weekend. Congrats to Antoine Davis, who has thrived in obscurity. That's the other bummer. Like the teams just haven't been good. 4 of his 5 seasons, they've been a sub 500 team. His father, Mike Davis, of course, coaches the Titans there. But that was another, at least a news item worth noting over the weekend. We had some big performances. Davis's was the biggest, and I previously mentioned Timmy had a career high 38 points for Gonzaga, which got a scare at Pacific, but ultimately wound up winning.
On the subject of obscure mid-major players in the state of Michigan, when's the last time you thought about Amani Bates?
The true answer to that is about a week, within the past week, because I was just curious. But how about this? I have not looked at his stat line. Let me guess the stat line?
Okay.
Points. All right. I swear I haven't looked. I'm going to say, I think Bates has had at least 2 games where he's gone for 30 plus. I will say Amani Bates at Eastern Michigan. I'm going to guess, let me guess the team record and the stat line, because I don't know. I'll say they've played 20 games. So I'll say Eastern Michigan is...
let me stop you there. They played 19.
Okay, they played 19 games. I'll say Eastern Michigan I'll say they're 9-10?
4-15.
Ooh, okay. And then I'll say Bates is I'll say he's getting his. I'll say Amani Bates is at 18.8 per game right now.
19.3, shooting 34% from 3.
30. Okay, well, there we go.
It's just a reminder. Like we make a big deal. Like, ooh, Amani Bates. And if you want to go play at the mid-major level as a former 5-star recruit, it's fine with me. I don't care. But the idea that we will or people will follow you there, it's just not true.
You got to be awesome, and the team has to be it has to be a fringe bubble team. That's what.
Yeah, you just fall completely off the radar.
Yeah, agreed.
So 19 points, 5.6 rebounds, shooting 34.4% from 3. Anything else you want to touch on from the weekend before we look ahead to the next couple nights?
No, I got a thought on Duke, but I'll just merge that into they play Monday.
They do play Monday. So yeah. So I was like, do they play on Monday? But yes, I've got it right here in front of me. On Monday night, lighter schedule, but some good games. Kansas at Baylor. That's the biggest, obviously. A showdown between the previous 2 national champions. Duke at Virginia Tech. New Mexico at Nevada. And then on Tuesday night, busy schedule. Penn State at Rutgers. Kansas State at Iowa State. DePaul at Georgetown.
Wait, what?
I only bring it up because, like, I know that sounds ridiculous. I'm just throwing DePaul and Georgetown right there in between Kansas State, Iowa State, and Ohio State, Illinois. It's Georgetown's last decent chance to get a Big East win. That's the only reason I put it in there.
All right.
Georgetown has lost 29 straight Big East games, which seems impossible. I mean, like, I think Eastern Michigan could get one. If you gave Eastern Michigan 29 straight Big East games, I think they could get one in there somewhere. All right, so this is crazy. But KenPom does give the Hoyas a 42% chance to beat DePaul at home on Tuesday. It's their best chance to break this streak before the season ends. So you got that. Ohio State, Illinois, North Carolina at Syracuse. Say what you want to say about Duke.
Well, I'll work backwards there. Ohio State and Illinois, that just is an intriguing game to me. I had no idea what to expect from that one. Syracuse, Q's, you win. Maybe we'll give you some love on the Wednesday show because 13-7, we'll see. But beat UNC. Kansas State, as I said, Parrish. Palm has them on a one line. Parrish actually maybe have them on a one line.
I would have them on a one line. I have Kansas State fourth in my top 25 and 1. I would have them as my one seeds right now would be Houston, Purdue, Alabama, and Kansas State.
Yeah, I think that's the 4. I think that's the pretty right now. I think those are the only 4 that you can really say should be the one line right now. But K-State's got to go to Iowa State, which blew it. It's actually an important win for Oklahoma State to just build up some sort of tournament resume. So we'll see how Iowa State responds. That's Tuesday night, K-State at Iowa State. That is ESPNU. You don't need to go streaming for that one. Kentucky at Vandy, 9 Eastern SEC Network, Tuesday night. Maybe just keep an eye. Just keep an eye.
Vandy, I don't have it right here in front of me. Vandy's won a couple of games recently.
Just keep an eye. That's one of the things like Kentucky. Okay.
Kentucky. Yeah, Vanderbilt beat Arkansas, Georgia. Vanderbilt's 3-3 in the SEC.
Look out. They're a wagon right now. Kentucky has won 3 in a row and, got it done against A&M over the weekend. Credit, got it done. Kentucky, but you've got a Indiana, Minnesota situation. Don't be squeezing the clench in your ass bone. You see what I'm saying? Like that's what's going on Tuesday night. Kentucky fans are like, can we just go to Nashville, win this game by 15 points and not induce any
in fairness, my ass bone has been clenched in Nashville.
Oh, I'm sure a half dozen times minimum,
at least.
Okay. So Tuesday is actually pretty decent. Monday though, yes, Monday with Kansas Baylor. That's the biggie. I'll be on HQ on Monday at some point, so keep an eye there. GP obviously will be in studio Tuesday, Wednesday for CBS Sports.
No, I'm home all week, baby.
My bad. I was.
This is the 1 week in the season. The 1 week in the season where I'm not going to New York. They sort of schedule that in there. Just to, I think I don't want to speak for my bosses, but maybe just give everybody a breather before you keep going nonstop. And it's actually perfect because Monday night at FedEx Forum, Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock.
You're going? Of
course I'm going. What are you talking about?
There we go. Well, excellent. You're going to miss Kansas Baylor.
Well,
you're going to make it. Thank you.
It'll be fine. I'll live.
You will. I know.
It's a basketball game. I'll read. I'll know. Hey, by Wednesday morning when we talk again, I'll know
ready.
I'll know everything I need to know about it.
You will be ready for it for sure. By the way, I'm going to say, are they splitting the bill? Who goes first? In my opinion, Chappelle should go first.
In my opinion, Chappelle, controversial as he might be in some circles, is the greatest stand-up comedian of all time.
Whoa.
Hold up. What?
I think Dave Chappelle is the greatest stand-up comedian of all time.
I can't get up.
He is hilarious, but also brilliant, like brilliantly smart. I don't even know if you can put those two words together, but you get my point.
I can't go, and I have as many do have extremely fond memories. Not even a stand-up, but Chappelle's show. Greatest stand-up of okay. I'll say I just brought it to first of all, Nada. I think it should go Chappelle then Rock, but maybe they might split time. Nada, who you going? What order for that show?
First things first. Chris Rock should close the show. I love Chappelle. Love everything he's done. Chris Rock has at least 3 classic stand-ups. Moreover, GP, Richard Pryor is turning in his grave with the greatest stand-up. Chappelle's a great. No. When Chappelle does an entire bit on freebasing, then come back and holler at me.
I mean, Richard Pryor, I'm not arguing that Richard Pryor wasn't great. George Carlin wasn't great. Eddie Murphy, obviously great. I mean, there's some amazing stand-up comedians throughout my lifetime. And like this sounds awful because like where were my parents? But I grew up like watching Delirious, watching Raw. You know, I watched those things when I was a kid. You know, if you're my age, there was a time in your life you probably knew every word of Raw, every word of Delirious. So Eddie Murphy's in the conversation. Obviously, Chris Rock, George Carlin is going to be there for a lot of people. A lot of us.
I know you're huge on Dane Cook for sure.
Yeah, I don't care about that. There are other guys, like there are other guys working today that I find hilarious, but Dane Cook wouldn't be one of them. But I do. I think Chappelle's the best. I think Chappelle is the smartest / funniest person who has ever stood on a stage and held a mic and told stories and jokes.
I'm not going to gauge one comic's intelligence against the other, but I think the comic that actually has induced the most collective introspection of a culture ever would be George Carlin. I think Carlin is actually the answer to that one. My 5 favorites, since we're on this topic, I did bring up like greatest comics of all time. So I'm not saying these are the best. My 5 favorites. You know who's on this list who actually like in terms of stand-up comedy, and he was a comet, and then he bolted on it and didn't do it anymore. Jim Carrey is one of my 5 favorite stand-up comics of all time. He was unreal. There's a reason why he became an absolute massive superstar. Maybe that's a cheat because he really didn't earn most of his fame off of his stand-up. So I'll remove him. I will say, in no order, I would go Carlin, Rock, Mitch Hedberg, Norm Macdonald.
Oh, Norm is one of my favorites. Norm is like on the list of favorites.
Rock, Carlin, Hedberg, Norm,
Eddie Murphy. I mean, Eddie Murphy's an all-time.
I enjoy Murphy. He would not be on my personal top 5. I'm not. That's one of those things where like I don't enjoy. I actually enjoy Eddie Murphy stand-up, but he wouldn't be on my top 5 personal favorites. Chappelle would be really close on that, I guess, all time. I'd have to think on that. But I'm glad you brought this up. There's names here that I'm just not remembering.
Where's Sam Kinison on your list?
Kinison is unquestionably in my top 10. Kinison and Bill Hicks would both easily be in my top 10. Sarah Silverman, when she was really doing it,
Sarah Silverman,
funny as hell, man. Super, super, super funny. There's a woman right now. I don't know. You're listening to a college basketball podcast. I apologize. I don't remember her name, but she's got a few Netflix specials that I've watched with my wife. She's blonde. And she's really good. I think she's been like new to the scene in the past like 7-8 years. I think she's actually pretty.
Nikki Glazer?
No. I'll bring it up right now.
Nikki Glazer's blonde.
No,
you're not thinking Amy Schumer, are you?
No. I know who's. No, I know who Amy Schumer is. Hold on, I'm bringing it up right now. She's got like 5 or 6 specials there. Oh, man, I cannot remember. This is one of those classics where people listen.
So my top 5 would be something along the line. I'd have Dave Chappelle. I'd have Chris Rock. I would have Norm Macdonald. I think George Carlin. And you know, Ricky Gervais is hilarious.
Gervais is good. Yeah, Eliza Schlesinger. It's in the comments. That's who it is. Eliza Schlesinger. She's pretty good. Pretty good.
People are in the comments. Taylor Tomlinson. I've watched a couple of her specials. She's good.
I have not seen her. But anyway, I'm glad we got on this. Go on. Well, what happens is like I won't watch stand up for a while, and then either like I'll catch it on Sirius XM or I'll watch a special, and then I'll just go through like a 2-week phase. This is like every 2 to 3 years, and I'll just like I'll go back to it. I'll watch, and yeah, the art of stand up comedy, man. The people that can do that. And really incredible. I mean,
and what comedians will tell you, like, okay, everybody can have a difference of opinion who's the best. What comedians will tell you is that nobody is as proficient as Chappelle. Like, comedians will work 6 months to get a new hour of material, maybe longer. Chappelle could do a new hour. People will tell you, you know, every if you told him he had to do a new hour every month, he could figure out a way to do that.
I would. Because I loved him so much when I was younger, Seinfeld might be my 5th, but I don't know. And Seinfeld's almost the exact opposite. He's talked about that a lot in terms of the just work ethic and hours upon hours and honing and chain and every single pace syllable, everything with the joke is something else. But yeah, Mitch Hedberg would be in my top 3, man. He's just
Norm. There's an Instagram account that just has Norm clips, and I follow it. And sometimes I just sit there and like just watch Norm clip. Norm is an all-time great. Definitely in my top 5.
Wanda Sykes is also very, very good. Probably even underrated. Wanda Sykes is tremendous as well. That's been our stand-up corner. Real quick, Duke Virginia Tech, 7:00 Eastern on ESPN. Duke got a win over the weekend against Miami. I just wanted to bring up Jeremy Roach returned. I didn't think he was going to play in this one, but he did. And boy, Duke's lucky he did, because I don't think Duke would have won the game if he wasn't playing. He came back, got 14 points, played well, had 4 assists, a pair of steals, and his presence on the floor unquestionably steadied that team. Kyle Filipowski was good again. Derek Lively had probably a top 3 game he's had at Duke. He had 10 boards and 5 block shots. So it was a tough battle. Like Miami could have very well had. Isaiah Wong had his second straight bad game. He only had 7 points and 1 assist there. And Nigel Packett 4 threes in the first half, but then he got cold. So tough loss on the road by 2. Duke got the win. I don't know if Duke will be ranked or not when it comes on Monday, but it was unranked here, a rare instance where it's at home unranked playing a ranked opponent. That doesn't happen too often for that program. But Duke got the win, and now it's got to do a quick turnaround here. Go play a Virginia Tech team that has just done a 180. At one point, it was 11-1, and here we look. 7 straight losses, 1-7 in the league. Almost had it on the road against Clemson. Hunter Tyson hit a 3 with like 3 seconds to go. Get Clemson the win down there in South Carolina, and now the Hokies are going to welcome in Duke, and certainly keep an eye on that one. That actually projects as a 1-point win for Virginia Tech at KenPom. I don't know if the gambling line will put Virginia Tech as a favorite in that game or not, but having Roach back is massive for that Duke team, which is just trying to really continue to find itself. But it's 14-5, and they're doing okay in year 1 under Shire.
Duke, I do have in the top 25-1. I had them even before the win over Miami, still in, and I moved them up to 21 after the win over Miami. I do suspect that Duke will likely be in the AP poll when it updates. Like if you look at the resume, it's not great. It's not normal Duke standard stuff, but there's enough there to get them on an AP ballot. I think we referenced it earlier, but they're 3-5 in quadrant 1, 5-5 in the first 2 quadrants, and 0 losses outside of quadrant 1. So this is one where we've talked about it before. The win column and the loss column matter to me. And it is notable that Duke has 0 losses outside of quadrant 1. Like that's good for your resume. So we'll see what AP voters do. Never know, but I would definitely, if I had an AP ballot, I would have Duke on it. No question. You ready to get out of here?
Yeah, if you listened and enjoyed the stand-up stuff, if there's an under-the-radar comic that you think we should know about, listen to Cesare, like tweet me. I'm always it's a fun thing to discover someone that you've never heard of, and they might have an act that's pretty funny. So tweet at me, tweet at GP if there's a good one. That's not like a top 30, 40 name out there. That's pretty mainstream. Just
do I look a little darker than normal? I think I forgot to turn my light on all the way.
You're good. You're good.
Yep. See, I had forgot to turn my light on all the way. Now look at it.
I did not notice a difference myself.
I noticed it by looking at myself. I noticed it immediately.
All right.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for listening. Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Over at Apple, you're going to need 5 stars, a nice review, type some words. There's more of us than there are of them. A lot of them. A lot of us in Nashville. If you know what I mean.
Germs do not go quietly. That's a Mitch Hedberg reference.
If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, go ahead and knock that out.
We got someone saying no shout to Leaky Black. Did you miss that?
We don't shout out Leaky Black at the end. We shout out.
That's actually true.
Yeah. What are you doing?
I got someone else in the comments saying I look darker than normal. That's because the light's not on in here.
we both forgot to turn our lights on today.
I really don't. I was hoping the natural light. Clouds are coming in heavy. What do you want from me? Yeah, there's no shout to Leak at the end. Come on, be better.
Yeah, don't confuse me. I'm already confused enough. Don't confuse me further. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday.